What's going on, paranormal world? What's the famous line? History repeats itself. Well, in this instance, regarding the paranormal, history completely vanished. This topic today is more like a question. I often wonder why the notorious paranormal hauntings don't happen as frequently like they did in the 1960s, 70s, and 80s. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure there are plenty of occurrences that never hit mainstream media in today's time. But this will be a series of videos discussing the true facts and giving my unpopular opinion about the case files of the Warrens. It's more like an unpacking of the inconsistencies within the paranormal claims by the families and the paranormal investigators. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the unraveling of the Warren cases. And stop what you're doing right now, and before you proceed, leave a like if you think the Amityville case is fake. And comment down below if you think the Amityville case is real. Okay, so let's start with one of the first mainstream haunted houses in America. If you take a look back at some of the more famous hauntings like the Amityville house, you can pick and choose the inconsistencies in their stories. And the story of the Amityville horror began on November 13th, 1974 in Long Island, New York. 6 individuals were murdered in cold blood, face down laying in bed. We all heard this backstory and everything like that, but I'm still going to go over it. 23-year-old Ronald DeFeo Jr. shot both his parents and 4 of his siblings using a .35 caliber rifle. On November 25th, 1975, a year later, Ronald DeFeo Jr. was convicted. After not being able to prove his innocence, he was convicted of 6 counts of second-degree murder and serving 6 life sentences, and rightfully so. However, DeFeo's motive is often related to the paranormal. But if you believe he was hearing voices, then you also have to take into account that he was mentally unstable, an alcohol abuser, and a heroin user. I'm almost positive that Ronald having a mental and drug imbalance contributed to these murders. And another motive was for his father's life insurance policy. And it's no secret that him and his father never had a good relationship. Ronald was abused by his father, and there's reports that Ronald received brain injuries due to all that abuse. But I also want to mention that the whole family was a dysfunction, and the sister didn't really get along with the parents either. And it's rumored that Ronald's sister did assist in some of the murders. And most people, including myself, refer to the DeFeo murders as the real Amityville horror. But the Amityville house and what we know today is the story of the Lux family. The Lux moved into the DeFeo's house in December of 1975. On the very first day they moved in, the Lux family brought in a priest to bless the house. Supposedly, air quotes. Lux said that the priest felt the unseen entity slap him in the face and uttered the words, "Get out." I don't know why, but that's just funny that they said a ghost slapped him in the face. If that wasn't enough, flu-like symptoms began to overtake the priest while his hand was blistering up and bleeding at the same time. So that's a lot of stuff going on and a lot of descriptions that the Lux family was describing. Even with that causing for concern, the family ignored that and they moved right in. And get this, I don't know if it's true or not, it's been disputes, but the Lux actually bought the DeFeo's furniture, like the bed frame, the mattress, the couches and stuff like that. But it's been disputes. Some people say that it was only the bed frame and some people said it was the mattress. But either way it goes, man, that's kind of creepy, and I definitely wouldn't want that kind of vibes and energy inside my house. At this point, I'm pretty sure they're happy, considering they just got a legit bargain on the DeFeo house. $80,000. And keep in mind, this is probably like a $200,000 house at the time. But that bargain came with a price, and it didn't take long. Maybe it was a genius investment, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink. But here are some supernatural events that the family allegedly went through. The front door opening and slamming in the middle of the night. Awakening at 3:15 mostly every night. A very vile odor throughout the whole entire house. Temperature fluctuations, levitations by family members, slime on the carpet and the walls, flies throughout certain rooms of the house. And keep in mind, flies don't really appear in the winter time, and it was so many flies in the windows during this time. With all those circumstantial events 28 days after moving in the house, they abruptly left the house, leaving behind everything. And with this horrific story circulating around town, psychic researchers was curious about the claims, and they wanted to research the house. The Warrens were amongst those who were investigating. The Warrens actually had to meet the Lux at a restaurant because they had to get the keys, and the Lux refused to go back to the house. So while the Warrens are going to the house to investigate, it was a sense of dread and depression, especially to Lorraine Warren. And during these investigations, not much evidence was captured, but they did capture one famous picture, and it's in the Warrens' collection. The ghostly figure of a little boy by one of the bedrooms. I honestly think this photo is fake as fake can get. Anyway, the researchers conducted their research, and the Lux returned to the home with no problems. And once word got out that potential books were being made about the DeFeo murders, the Lux figured, hey, why can't we sell our own books? I mean, it could be potential money grab and life-changing type of money. William Weber, DeFeo's lawyer or attorney, whatever he was, he sat down with the Lux. They wanted to talk and negotiate about a potential book. So they sat down as a group and they started to relive their encounters. And with over-the-top exaggerations, Weber knew that they were fabricating just for the book's sake. So after all of this occurred, William Weber wanted Ronald DeFeo to get a piece of the percentage and the earnings, like a partnership. And that's when the Lux went to someone else to earn more profits and just get more money for themselves. Eventually, they moved and they finally got their wish. They published their own book after moving to California. The Amityville Horror, A True Story. And this book sold over 6 million copies. And the actual Amityville Horror movie hit big screens in 1976. So all of this happened in a short period of time. Very swiftly, if I may add. So that's basically the backstory in a quick summary. But let's transition and talk about the Warrens' involvement in this case. The Warrens call this the most terrifying case that they have been involved in. Both Ed and Lorraine Warren swear that the events that happened in this house was like none other. I listened to a couple of interviews about the Amityville hauntings, and Lorraine Warren said that every male involved with the investigation has either had a heart attack or died due to a heart attack. Not sure if I believe that, or, I mean, maybe it could be a correlation, but then again, in almost every interview I watched of these two, they have inconsistencies within their story. For instance, the Lux and the Warrens have stated that hoof prints were seen in the snow. So I guess they were trying to say that something evil was there, the devil was there. And with that being said, the weather records for that specific area indicated no snowfall in or around that area during that time. I mean, if it was snowing and snow on the ground, that could have been any type of animal. I mean, you can't just take stuff and run with it like the Warrens do. They also claimed that some of the house was damaged beyond repair. But in reality, the hinges, doorknobs, locks were all in good, excellent shape, like they'd never been touched. Plus, the Lux claimed that they called the police. No record on file have seen that family call the police. It hasn't been confirmed. And if there's anything that would discredit this whole Amityville haunting, it's that Ronald DeFeo came out and publicly stated that the house is not haunted. It has no evil entities. And I think he mentioned that he wasn't even involved in like witchcraft or all that kind of stuff. It upsets me knowing that Ronald DeFeo was basically admitting that he was on drugs and he was mentally abused as a child. And he had an awful relationship with his father. And he also did small mob missions. It seems like Ed and Lorraine Warren ignored all of this. I mean, they didn't even bother to listen to what DeFeo was saying, that the house wasn't haunted and there was no evil entity. And with Ed and Lorraine Warren following up behind the Lux, I mean, it seems like they believed anything the Lux said, and they also believed anything that Ronald DeFeo did and believed. But with that being said, if I was a paranormal investigator, and a family told me even the smallest of a lie, I would have to discredit that whole investigation because I can't trust them. And years later, the Lucks have been proven that they've been lying about this, especially fabricating some of the stories. And yet, the Warrens continue to push the narrative that what happened in the book is nothing compared to what happened during the investigation. They say that the details in the book were actually watered down. And if you listen to the book or read the book, that book gets into very descriptive details about scary stuff happening at that house. Just for instance, I think they said it sounded like a marching band was playing in the house at times. Furniture was being thrown around. People was levitating. I mean, you name it. Everything was going on. But does anyone find it strange that the Warrens never captured real proof on this case? I mean, there is no proof of this house being haunted. Even in today's time, the families that have stayed in this Amityville house haven't had any paranormal experience whatsoever. And get this, I think Lorraine Warren has mentioned that the house was built on some type of Indian burial ground. And one of the tribe members came out and said that that wasn't accurate. And another thing I want to mention is, remember when I said that the priest came out to the house when the Lucks bought the house to bless it? Well, the priest came out and said that he never actually even been to the house. He only talked to the Lucks on the phone. You see what I'm talking about? Anytime there are inconsistent stories going around, the Warrens are always involved. And you know what? When Ed and Lorraine Warren first entered the Lucks house, they said it smelled like death. Of course it's going to smell like that. I mean, they left the food in the sink. I mean, of course the trash is going to stink if they abandoned the house like that. Of course it's going to smell. Man, that just cracks me up. Overall, I don't believe the Amityville house is haunted. But if it is haunted, it's from the innocent lives lost. Nothing evil. The Lucks family, I truly believe, organized this whole thing. Which was a good plan if you think about it. They made a profit out of it. George Lucks bought the house as an investment. I personally believe that if he could orchestrate them being so terrified and that the house was haunted, it could possibly get them a book or a movie deal if it hits mainstream. Because if you think about it, The Exorcist came out, I think, a couple of years before this, and everyone knew how frightening The Exorcist was. And that was a fake movie. So just imagine the Lucks saying, hey, we actually went through some real terrifying things. This is legit what we went through. And sell that to Hollywood. Of course, that'll be a hot commodity. And like I said, that movie came out a couple of years later in 1976, I believe. But I do believe that The Exorcist did spark that idea. In conclusion, the Amityville horror is a hoax. It's just the money grab. Can't you tell about the 18 movies that they made about the Amityville horror? I mean, why do we need 18 movies about this? Come on. But yeah, comment down below. What are your thoughts about the Amityville horror? What are your thoughts about the Warrens investigating the Amityville house? Do you believe them or do you not believe them? I mean, there's a lot of speculations going on. And like I said, wherever the Warrens are, there are inconsistency stories. So yeah, man, I'd love to read your comments down below and start that conversation down below. I'm ready to see some people argue. But yeah, man, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for any and everything paranormal. As always, be safe. Peace.